Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are back finally after a long hiatus. It is I, Anthony, Matt, the Moongus Burnouts, and we are going to take us through real quick not only the last couple of week power rankings, but also the playoff picture coming up, how it turned out these last 2 weeks, and how our bracket's going to be looking, and then break down the teams a little bit. So, we're in for a little bit of a different kind of setup than we usually do here because we are moving into the postseason. But without further ado, I'll have Matt here. He's going to take us through what turned out being the week 9 and 10 power rankings. We didn't do that on purpose. It actually just turned out that there wasn't a lot of movement going between week 9 and week 10. So we just condensed them down into just having one graphic here instead of having two graphics. That's essentially the same thing.
Yeah, inevitably as the season moves forward, as the team's records and placements get a little bit more solidified, there's going to be less movement, and that's kind of what we saw in the last weeks. We decided that these were going to be our power rankings after week 9, and then even after the week 10 games, we didn't feel like anybody was really moving at all.
Yeah.
So this is what we ended up with for both weeks. Down at the bottom, we as usual we've got the Lava Ridge Raiders at 14 with 0-9 record. We've got the Mimikyus also down there at number 13. Skarmory's dropped a spot mostly because of they ended up having to forfeit their last, was it one match or two?
I think it was just the last one against the Russians. They did play the one before then, but they lost.
So they ended up having to forfeit. New Wave coming in at 11. We bumped them up a little bit because they did end up taking a pretty significant victory in these last couple weeks. We'll talk about that. Russian Assets staying down at number 10. Potatoes number 9. They did they didn't actually do too well these last couple weeks.
No.
Team Pussy actually up at number 8. It's a little bit weird. Potatoes being at number 9, Team Pussy being at number 8, considering that Team Pussy did not make it into the playoffs and the Potatoes did. But being in different divisions, they're not exactly competing with each other for playoff spots. So we feel that Team Pussy ended up having a better season overall.
Yeah.
But because they were in what turned out to be inevitably a tougher division, they're not in playoffs, but the Potatoes are. So Team Pussy having a decent last couple of weeks. Well, some good and bad. Sadistic Seniors eking out that last playoff spot in Sword Division, coming in at number 7. Toronto Talonflames, after a fantastic season, coming in at number 6. The always solid New England Patriots starting off the top 5. The Matt Alcinas, pretty feel like the Mats and the Patriots are pretty close together in as far as how good of a season they've had, but we like the Mats just a little bit more. Sky Pillars at number 3. They were at number 2, but they ended with the same record as Doesn't Click. Ended up dropping a game toward the end. We felt like Doesn't Click had a little bit of a stronger season. Their losses were maybe not as significant as the Sky Pillars losses, so we have them up at number 2. And then at number 1, once again, is us, the Amogus Burnouts. We ended up taking our first loss, but we've still got the best record in the league, number 1 seed. So we didn't feel like that was significant enough to drop us down at all. Mm-hmm. So those are going to be our final power rankings going into playoffs.
Yep. So with all that, we're going to talk about how these last couple of weeks played out in the league. So first, we're going to kind of talk about how week 9 played out, and then go break down week 10. We're just going to kind of touch on these a little bit and more talk about not so much the game themselves, but how those outcomes affected the playoff race going into it. So not a lot of detail in sets or stuff like that we typically do, but more just how this played out.
We don't actually have a lot of information on a lot of these games anyway, so
made it a little bit tough. So instead, we're going to just kind of break down, which there is still a lot of information to digest here. And then after we go over week 9 and week 10, that will solidify our playoff brackets completely, and we'll break down the Sword and Shield division standings and kind of hit on how each team did during the throughout the year. So even if you didn't make playoffs, we're going to talk about you guys and kind of go over the how all these teams ended up playing throughout this great season of NBL. So in week 9, to kick it off, we have LA New Wave beating Team Pussy. This was a huge playoff implication game. Both teams needed to win this one. LA New Wave was able to secure that win, which was really huge for them. And Team Pussy really put them in the behind the 8 ball as far as like trying to crawl back to get their playoff spot. So especially in a good division like Sword division. So that really was tough for them to lose. The Mimikyus took their auto win game against the Lava Ridge Raiders. That really didn't have anything to do too much of an impact with the standings. The Sadistic Seniors ended up beating the Potatoes. The Sadistic Seniors, this was a really key game for them as well. With them and Team Pussy taking that loss, it was huge that they were going to be able to beat the Potatoes, who also desperately needed to win a game. So, big time win by the Seniors there. Then we have the Matt Alcinas beating the Sky Pillars. This one, they needed, not just to lock down playoffs, but they were really fighting to try and, make sure that we talked to the Mats. They were going to avoid us. They didn't want to fall behind. I think that was mathematically impossible, though. But they wanted to at least get that spot to kind of try and secure the free agency priority in the list. So, being the Sky Pillars, they didn't have too much playoff implications there, but I know the Matt Alcinos really wanted that one.
Sky Pillars really didn't want to lose there either.
Yeah, and the Sky Pillars, they got that taste too for winning. But yeah, for this one, it did have implications on how stuff was going to go in Sword Division.
I think that was the game with the Joy-Con drift mistake. Yeah, so that was really unfortunate.
And then after that, we have the New England Patriots losing to Doesn't Click. Good game for Doesn't Click there. They wanted to try and get down the number 1 seed. They weren't able to do that because they needed a couple things to go their way. But still,
that was a 5-0 win for them, though.
Yeah, it was still a really good win against a really good team in the Patriots. We talk about both these teams a lot, so that was two heavyweights going at it, and Doesn't Click handily won that one. So props to them. After that, we had us, the Amogus Burnouts, beating the Russian Assets. We actually needed this win too, as well, to lock down the first seed overall and make sure that we were going to get the first slot in the transactions. The Russians, this was obviously a key game for them. So they really needed to win this one because they were in Sword Division. So we saw two teams that really were in must-win situations in the Russians and Team Pussy taking losses when they really shouldn't. They didn't have room to lose any at all. Obviously, against us, it was harder for the Russians than for Team Pussy, but because they have to go against a better team record-wise than the LA New Wave, but it was still a tough loss. And then after that, the Toronto Talent Flames secured a victory over the SoCal Skarmories. Another must-win for the Skarmories, but the Talent Flames, they wanted to make sure that they got their spot, properly, because I don't know if they were secured yet in week 9. I think that there were still a couple teams that were kind of on them a little bit.
I think they may have been. I actually don't remember.
Yeah, but either way, not too many playoff implications on their end. More for the Skarmories because they were doing so well already in the first place. So good on them. So that wrapped up week 9. The biggest takeaways I would say from week 9 probably Team Pussy losing, the Russians losing in must-win scenarios. The Potatoes as well. I feel that they were in must-win scenarios too. But the Seniors, they wanted that one real bad. They needed to win these last couple of weeks to get into playoffs. So that one's kind of understandable. But the Russians definitely needed to win, and Team Pussy definitely needed to win.
Moving on to week 10, our first match is Team Pussy versus us. Team Pussy ends up winning, which they really needed to do. If they lost this match, then that was it. They were not making playoffs. They ended up beating us. This was our first loss of the season, and they props to them. They prepped very well.
Yeah.
This is definitely what they needed to try to make it into playoffs. Didn't exactly work out as you can see over there on in the standings. The Patriots ended up beating the Melee Mimikyus, not by much though. I think that was like a 1-0 or a 2-0 win that they almost lost, which was kind of surprising given that how well the Patriots have done over the season, and especially since the Mimikyus were at the bottom of Sword Division for pretty much the whole season. Next up, we have the Sadistic Seniors beating the Matt Alcinas, which for the Mats didn't really matter too much. If they had won this one, they would have gotten that second seed. They would have been able to pick before a couple of other teams, but I don't think that ended up mattering. I think they got what they wanted. So for the Mats, this didn't really matter. For the Seniors, however, this is the game that put them into that fourth seed in Sword Division. Both the Russians and Team Pussy really needed the Seniors to lose this game in order for either of them to have a chance. However, the Russians also needed Team Pussy to lose. So Seniors won this one and overtook both Team Pussy and the Russians and locked up that fourth seed. So crucial game for them. Next up, we have Doesn't Click versus the Potatoes. I don't think anybody is particularly surprised to see Doesn't Click picking up the win here, but it did put the Potatoes in a bit of a dangerous spot. They, as you can see, they do end up having the same record as LA New Wave. So if New Wave actually picked up another win here in Week 10, we'd be looking at a different playoff layout here. So this was a semi-important game for Doesn't Click. They wanted that first seed. I don't think it made a difference for them in terms of transactions, but would have been nice to have the first seed at least. And they just barely missed out on that first seed by one differential point. But yeah, it put the Potatoes in a pretty dangerous position. After that, we've got the Sky Pillars and LA New Wave. Sky Pillars picking up the win here, and this is what took New Wave out of playoff contention. So unfortunate for them. It allowed the Sky Pillars to retain that number 1 seed spot in Sword Division, especially with that extra differential point. As many of us have said before, every kill matters. So it's kind of funny to see that come down to just 1 point there, especially since if they had tied on differential, Doesn't Click would actually take the number 1 slot because they beat the Sky Pillars in the regular season. So and then we have the Talon Flames taking their free win against the Raiders, just helping them lock up that playoff spot. So that's going to be Week 10.
So with that all wrapped up, we have our 4 seeds or our 8 seeds here in the playoffs. First things first, I'm going to go through Sword Division, and then Matt's going to take Shield Division. We're going to start just talking about the teams that didn't make the playoffs and then go into the playoff teams. And then, just kind of hit on exactly what our expectations were for them. Did they hit them? Things like that. So to start off in Sword Division, we have the Melee Mimikyus, the team that we weren't really high on. We thought that they had good structure in their building, but all of it coming together just didn't seem to work in the beginning. We expected some transactions. They did try hitting transactions, a lot throughout the year, but they just weren't the Pokemon that they needed to be swapping out. So because of that, I think keeping the 2 steel types for such a long time, the Durant and the Cobalion, it was real tough for them to kind of muster anything up. they seem like capable players. They seem like they have an idea on how Pokemon works. Obviously, they know mechanics, EVs, stuff like that. But it just didn't seem like the team was there, and it didn't seem like it was going to be there from the start. So we'll see. Hopefully, they come back next year or next season, and probably next year. Yeah, hopefully they come back next season though, and kind of understand a little bit how to draft a better, more well-rounded team than what they ended up having, because people underestimate draftability and to going into some of these leagues, because if you really don't know how to draft, it could put you behind the eight ball very quickly, and you have to constantly make transactions. We had growing pains in our first year where we first started playing. Yeah, we had to hit the transactions, and then it seemed like we made one or two transactions, it got the ball rolling, and we were barely able to squeak into playoffs during our first season. So we understand the growing pains, on that. Just something that the Mimikyus are probably going to have to deal with. But, overall, they ended up with a 2-7 record, a -16 differential. Just, bottom of the division type standings. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's who they are as players or indicative of their skill or ability or anything like that. But I think it puts you in a tough spot when you don't have proper pieces put in place on your roster. At number 6, we have the Russian Assets, kind of the opposite of the Mimikyus. I feel that, if the Mimikyus have a team that they want to, look at, the Russians did not have a great draft their first year. It was an okay draft. I feel that they had a great draft this year. It was just underperforming on certain things. I feel that we kind of hit their weaknesses pretty spot on. Their fast modes and aggressive modes didn't seem aggressive enough, and their trick rooms seemed a little bit lackluster. Everything was very solid, but it didn't seem to put out the offense that they needed at times.
I also think that by the time we were deep into the season, and everybody was able to see everything that their team did, it kind of seemed like there wasn't really a whole lot of versatility in the modes that they had. They had really threatening modes, but it was very clear what they were what they were doing and what their draft wanted to do. So it wasn't so much their prep. It was more a limitation of their draft's versatility, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say as well. So it's the same thing with them. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how they come in and draft next year, in the next upcoming season, because I really do feel that they have an idea of how a well-structured playoff team should look, but I don't know if they knew the Pokemon to put in there to fill in those particular slots. So I think you're right on that. So they ended up with a 4-5 record, -3. Disappointing, I know, for them too. Even though they were only a couple games out of playoffs, they stayed in contention the whole time. I know that Taryn and Dina, they wanted to make sure that they were going to be able to lock in the playoff slot early. They started off strong, but like you said, teams started to adapt to them, and it took them a little bit too long to adapt to other people's adaptations. So that's where they ended up. They ended up in the 6th slot. Team Pussy, the reigning champs for right now, they ended 4-5, -2. Actually, not bad, all things considering. Obviously, we feel that they didn't have a great draft. I'm sure they would tell us otherwise in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Maybe they agree with us now a little bit. With hindsight, I don't really know the players that well, but I really do think that. All things considered, to be able to stay in contention for a playoff slot in a very hard division like Sword Divisions, despite the abysmal start that they got off to, in our opinion, the very how much limitations they had in their draft, and I think it's amazing that they were able to pull this out. They ended up having to go through us. They ended up beating us. That was it was a big win for them. I think. They really wanted that new wave win. That's unfortunate for them. But what can you do? So
I think they ended up going 0-5 to 4-5. Is that right?
I think so.
Okay.
So they ended up. No, they went 0-4 to 4-5.
Okay.
Yeah, they did start off 0-4.
0-4. Okay.
Yeah. So kudos to them for being able to pull that out. They're great players, so it doesn't surprise me that they were able to stay in contention for playoffs, even though their draft clearly had limitations. So 4-5 -2, considering that they started off 0-4, it's not bad.
Definitely not bad at all. Very, very impressive how they almost climbed their way back in. But this has me wondering now. 2 seasons in a row, the returning champions were barely pushed out of playoffs. I don't know if that's something we're gonna see again next season, but it feels like we might have the beginnings of some kind of champions curse. Didn't happen in season 2 because Doesn't Click 1, 2 in a row.
Since Doesn't Click has hit back-to-back titles,
right?
No champion has returned and made the playoffs. Granted, the sample size is extremely small, but that statistic remains true. So I think that's pretty good for them, though, that they were able to remain in playoff contention. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with next season. I really do hope they come back. So
yeah, I'm sure we'll see them again.
Coming at number 4, they're the first playoff slot in Sword Division. Was the Sadistic Seniors. A team that I feel was very much like the Russians in the sense that they had very threatening modes. Their prep was fantastic throughout the season. They took a little bit of a drop off midway towards the end, but they were able to scrape together enough wins to where they were able to get into playoffs. They're definitely a dangerous team to watch out for. I know the Sky Pillars don't want to face them because they are definitely very dangerous. I think that the Sky Pillars have a pretty good matchup against them, but I know that the Sky Pillars themselves know that it's going to be tough. They have ways to win, so that's going to be a great matchup to watch right there. But the Seniors, good year for them overall. I think that they probably expected a little bit more. Maybe, if I were to be completely candid about the whole situation, if you were to ask me at the beginning of the year which team barely squeaks into playoffs and which team kind of cruises on through, I would have said the Seniors are the ones that are going to cruise in like the Talonflames. Maybe not be a top team, but definitely cruise in. And the Talonflames were going to be the one in the end of the year because they did have a solid squad, and we've always said that was a little bit shallow in our opinion, but it's been solid, and they've proven us wrong over and over. I would have said that they were going to be the ones that were going to kind of come into playoffs a little bit and maybe, just be crawling in by the skin of their teeth. But instead it's the Seniors, so it'll be interesting to see how they end up playing out.
I think that's fair, especially since the Seniors took that forfeit loss to the Mimikyus.
Yeah.
Assuming they played that out and... no disrespect to the Mimikyus, but I think we expected the Seniors to win there had that game taken place. Mm-hmm. They would be at the same record as the Talonflames right now. So, and there'd be the playoff teams and the non-playoff teams wouldn't be quite so close if we had seen that play out, and of course given it played out the way we expected it to.
Yeah. In the 3 slot, we have the Toronto Talonflames. They ended up at a 6-3 record, kind of how we alluded to earlier. Honestly, the first surprise in this division, we did think that they were going to be good, but they showed marks of a great team consistently. They had really good prep constantly to where they were bringing different things every time, but somehow maintaining the core of what they had. So they brought certain items and certain Pokemon and combinations together, but they mixed them up. They would lead them or they would lead something else, and then they also, I think, trading for Tangela in the transaction period during the first transaction period was such a key move for them, and I think they would admit that as well, that they really needed that redirection. It really made the world of a difference for their team. So I think in general, the Talonflames were a great surprise. They ended at 6-3. It's going to be fantastic to watch them in the playoffs. They did end up pulling doesn't click, which is going to be difficult. But they've shown that they are a solid team. They have a solid roster of Pokemon. They're solid team builders. They're solid players. So they're definitely a team that shouldn't be slept on. They only need to win a few matches to get into playoffs. So definitely shouldn't be slept on.
I also want to add, since you mentioned them and their transactions, I've said at one point before that they are the team that is making better use of transactions than anybody else. Mm-hmm. I think that holds true even now.
Yeah.
Even after the pre-playoff transactions, which we'll get to in a little bit more detail in a bit. But yeah, I think I think first prize for useful transactions still goes to the Talonflames.
If we had awards for GM of the year, I think the Talonflames would probably win it, because they took a team that we graded as a B, I think B minus ish, mm-hmm. right? We didn't grade it too high because we felt that it had a lot of lack of depth and a lack of things that you require in doubles. They took that team, and honestly, if we looked at it now, their final roster, we would have gave it an A, just like with how we would have with the Patch Rats. They would have been up there with the Patch Rats, up there with the Mats, definitely, because stuff like Dragapult is just so powerful. They ended up dropping Sylveon, but Sylveon was really good at the time for them as well. The Toxtricity has put in a ton of work for them, so
surprising amount of work.
Yeah. So kudos to them. Like, just hats off completely to them for being able to prove us wrong. If we're just going to be candid, they took a team that.
Well, they also proved us right when we said they needed redirection.
Yeah,
and then they got it.
Yeah, true. But yeah, good for them. They've done a great job. It's going to be exciting to watch them go into playoffs. Number 2 in the number 2 seed, I should say. For Sword Division is Doesn't Click, a team that we aren't super surprised to see up here. We knew that the roster that they had assembled at the beginning of the year was going to be a force. We knew that they came with hunger coming into this season after avenging last season when they didn't make the playoffs, and they just kind of never stopped after they lost to, I believe,
Russians Team Pussy.
I believe it was the Russians where they just got their roll going. Yeah. And after that, they just kind of started taking off. Never really looked back. So honestly, kudos to them. They've proven that they're a force in this league. They should not be trifled with. They will definitely stomp you into the ground if they have the opportunity to. They will take a big 5-0, 6-0 win on you if you give them that opportunity and you don't bring your A game. So it doesn't surprise us too much that they ended with a 7-2 record, a plus 20 differential. So kudos to them for being able to pull that off and grabbing the number 2 seed in Sword Division. And last we have the Sky Pillars with the number 1 seed, probably the biggest and best surprise coming out of this season. A team that, like the Talonflames, we had them middle of the road, nothing too special.
Thought they were a little too top heavy.
This is a team that really did prove us wrong.
Yeah,
they made excellent use of those lower tier Pokemon that we really didn't give much, thought to. Stuff like Boltund, stuff like Golurk, obviously,
especially Golurk,
been MVP, but these things. Riolu has been fantastic for them all year. There's so many different combinations that this team has, and then it seems like their S tier picks in the G-Max Rillaboom and the Togekiss are just like extra. Their support.
Sometimes, yeah.
I mean,
sometimes they don't even hit the field.
I've seen Rillaboom just come in and get sacked off, so that way stuff like Milotic can come in and win the game. They're like, get rid of the S tier. The B tier needs to come in and win this. So, big props to them. They finished with a 7-2 record, a plus 21 differential. I think they're one of the teams that has proved that if you have it all, if you have the prep, if you have the knowledge, the team chemistry, and the roster, all that combined, then you are going to be a dangerous team. Because yes, we've seen good players come in here. This league is filled with good players, and we still have teams at the bottom. And I think you need to have the combination of like a compatible team building partner who's going to kind of like challenge you on certain things, which we've seen them do. They challenge each other constantly, which you need to do. Like we challenge each other constantly too, because if you can't sell your idea to your teammate, it's not a good idea. So you need to, your teammate needs to be able to challenge you and still like keep it with the niceties there as well, and the having the ability to be cordial with your teammate as well. But when you have those things, when you have a solid roster, good chemistry, good team building ability, you're gonna be one of the top teams. And the Sky Pillars came in completely new to NBL, completely new to all these like not draft leagues entirely, but like the multi-battle format with rotating Dynamax. Stuff like Incineroar really isn't that good because you can only pivot it in one side, which makes it less valuable because you only have 3 Pokemon on your side anyway, so you're not really doing a lot of switching. It's a completely different format, and they were still able to come in, adapt, and be the top seed in, no doubt, an incredibly difficult division. A division where everybody there are killers. You can lose to any one of these teams on any given week, and to show that they came out on top, just kudos to them. So they're gonna be fun to wrap up in the playoffs. So just to wrap up the Sword Division standings, we have at least for the top seeds. I'm gonna just go with our playoffs. The 1 seed we have the Sky Pillars. With the 7-2 record and plus 21 differential. Right behind them are the other, big time juggernauts. This doesn't click. At a 7-2 record with a plus 20 differential. You see that 1 kill differential making that much of a difference. Then right behind them, the Toronto Talon Flames. Solid team that we can't wait to see. And right behind them are the Sadistic Seniors, a team that we expected was going to do well, and they really did they clawed in, but might be reminiscent of the Matt Alcina's last year.
Could be.
We'll see. They clawed in. We knew they were a solid team.
Yep. And
they just, came and started beating teams left and right and made it into finals. Lost to Team Pussy, but still made a deep run. So we have to see what the Sadistic Seniors are. Definitely a dangerous team. So that rounds up our top 4 in the Sword Division. Those are going to be the teams that go to playoffs. And Matt, why don't you get us started with our own division, Shield Division?
All right. Also want to mention before we move on, since the Sky Pillars were the last team you talked about, you mentioned that they were one of the teams that proved us wrong. I think they also kind of proved themselves wrong because we've mentioned this before. But I can't get it out of my head after the season that they've had. During our initial interview with them, we asked them what their expectations were for the season, and their answer was something along the lines of, "Oh, I don't know, we'll have fun and maybe win a game here and there." And it didn't feel like they were a powerhouse that was going to come out swinging in the beginning, and here they are, the 1 seed of the frankly the more difficult division.
Yeah, absolutely. So kudos to them. Yeah. I think now if you ask them what their what their expectations are, they're gonna both give you that bloodthirsty look and go, "We're gonna win it." Oh yeah, that's what our expectations are. Yeah. We're winning it. So
now that they're here, now that they know that they're capable of it, yeah, of course they want to win. Yep. Yeah. So, all right, moving on to Shield Division. Down at the number 7 slot, we've got the Lava Ridge Raiders. As usual, they've got an 0-9 record with a tragic minus 29 differential. This team pretty much all season we've been harping on the same stuff. Their draft started out pretty good with the first few months, and God damn, it took a dive when they picked that Amoonguss, and it really, really showed. I mean, a lot of the teams that went up against them, us included, really just put safety goggles on a fire type and just won. it was a team that was extremely easy to shut down. It was extremely easy to see what they wanted to do, and that's it. It played out that way pretty much every time. And then those last few weeks, they weren't playing at all. So their last three opponents just ended up getting a free 3-0 win against them. So here they are down at the bottom. Don't think anybody's surprised to see them here. Number 6, the SoCal Skarmories, with a record of 2-7 minus 13 differential. We aren't. I don't think we're extremely surprised to see them down here, but I definitely expected the Skarmories to have a little bit more success at the beginning of the season. We both really liked their draft.
Yeah.
We thought it was a little bit straightforward. We thought it was maybe a little bit too reliant on self-hitting strategies to activate weakness policy and activate Sap Sipper and that kind of stuff. The Gmax Lapras was a little bit awkward. We talked about that being kind of like simultaneously an S tier but also a B tier, so that was a little bit awkward. And there were plenty of games where they didn't max it, which ended up kind of hurting them. So it was a little unfortunate to see them not getting to do what their team wanted to do as much as we would have liked. I really wanted to see their strategies go off once or twice, but it wasn't didn't really pan out that well. And then toward the end they had to forfeit once or twice there during the last couple weeks. So a little unfortunate they didn't get to finish out the regular season. Maybe we will see them again next season. I would at least expect to see Steve. So we'll see what happens. Number 5, LA New Wave. Another sort of maybe tragic is a little bit is a little bit harsh here, but a little bit of an unfortunate story here with Alan and Hector are they're two of the best players down here in the SoCal VGC scene. We know that we knew they were coming into this league wanting to they were definitely out for blood, especially against us. And it was really unfortunate to see them kind of almost collapse. And I do want to clarify the reason they didn't do so well. I think it's clearly more of a draft problem than a player problem. We've said that before. I think it definitely still holds true. It seemed like they drafted Mew first and just really didn't build around it. And I think it's possible they expected Mew to be a really splashable kind of Mon, because it seems like it would be, because it can learn anything. You can do anything with it, right? We've learned that it's not really it's not quite like that. It's not as splashable as you might think, and I think they suffered for not building very well around it. And even after they started to get going in the draft a little bit, some of their Mon choices were a little bit lackluster. There was a lot of stuff that just really didn't have the kind of power that they needed. I think the switch to Duraludon early on was good. Clearly wasn't enough, especially because I think they didn't really... I don't think they brought it as much as I thought they probably should. So a little unfortunate there. They ended at a record of 3-6 with a -10 differential. Unfortunately, not taking one of those playoff spots. They did have a couple of impressive upset wins. They ended up beating the Mats early on. Their victory against Team Pussy in Week 9, even though their records are not super different from one another, they're pretty close. I would still say that's a bit of an upset, considering how how much Team Pussy was coming back toward the end of the season. I don't think any of us expected that match in Week 9 to play out the way that it did. But they almost took that playoff spot in the end, especially since the Potatoes lost those last two cross division games. So it was a good effort toward the end. Unfortunately, didn't pan out for them. But if they decide to play next season, they will. They're probably going to have a bit of a chip on their shoulder, and they're probably going to come back wanting to draft a better team. And once they do, once we see these two with a better draft, we're gonna see what they're actually capable of. So,
which is a lot.
Yeah. Number 4, just barely squeaking into the playoffs here. The Potatoes with a record of 3 wins, 6 losses, -5 differential. They barely squeaked past LA New Wave. They ended up taking 2 losses at the end of the season. New Wave taking that win against Team Pussy, and then unfortunately the loss against the Sky Pillars. We're not able to beat them out, so they were kind of sort of relying on a loss from New Wave there. Otherwise they wouldn't have made it. So they just barely made it in. It is a little weird to see. I mean, it's not entirely weird because we kind of know how Shield Division's been, but it is a little weird to see a playoff team with a 3-6 record, but
and a negative differential.
Yeah, that as well, negative differential. Because as we see in Sword Division, all the playoff teams positive differential, all the non-playoff teams negative differential. Not necessarily how it's always going to work out, but
it's a good indicator.
Right. So the Potatoes, I think their 3 wins came from the 3 teams below them in Shield Division. Is that correct?
Yeah, you are correct.
So they ended up losing to the other teams in Shield Division. They lost to Dozen Click. Yeah, not too surprising. Dozen Click is an amazing team. They also lost to the Seniors, and they lost to the Talon Flames Week 1. So they've had a rough season. I know that Henry hasn't always been super present. I know he's had some other stuff going on. So Haley stepped in a few times. So I don't know if the shifting in players has been troublesome for them at all, but they're a team that we actually ranked very, very highly in the beginning. We thought that their draft was very, very strong. It still is. It's almost entirely the same draft, and I think they've had some close games, especially against the Mats. I think that their record is probably not a good indication of how good they are as players, and even how good their draft is.
Yeah.
Because I think they do have on paper they have one of the better drafts in the league. So it's a little bit surprising to see them with that record, but maybe they will show up to the playoffs and put that draft to good use like we've expected them to do earlier on in the season. So
I think one thing that you see with them, just to cut in, sorry, but with the Potatoes, we talk about the Sky Pillars and Doesn't Click, how they have those 3 things, right? They not only have a solid roster, but they also have good players with great team chemistry, right? And not saying that Henry and Alyssa don't have good chemistry, but when you remove one from the situation for a long time, and so much of the team building is only coming from one person,
right? And
you can't do things like how we talk about we challenge each other. The Sky Pillars challenge each other, and you don't have that other person there to kind of tell you certain things. It shows that like having 2 or 3 is not enough a lot of the times. Mm-hmm. You can have good world's caliber players with a good solid roster. But if you guys aren't gelling and you guys aren't clicking, or one of you is off and not really being able to communicate as much as they would like to, it shows. And I think this is one of those instances where you can kind of see that.
Yeah, and that's not to say that maybe they weren't clicking enough.
No,
I think
I
it's
wouldn't say that.
right. It's more just that what I sort of meant when I said maybe the having to switch players a lot, maybe possibly could have hurt them. That's entirely speculation. I don't really know. But the only reason I speculated that was because you don't necessarily have the same kind of consistency in that teammate relationship every time if you're switching back and forth between pairs of people. So and maybe that didn't have an effect. I'm not sure, but it's a possibility.
I don't think we've ever needed a sub, right?
No.
So that's kind of something too. It's tough for us to kind of understand how difficult it might be from like building from one player to the other. Like I feel that would be a little uncomfortable. Like like having another teammate come in and be like, "So me and you are going to build this week." Like the dynamic would be different. I feel like a subpar product would end up coming out.
Yeah, that's possible, but it's also possible that I mean, we've been doing this as a pair for 3 seasons now, so it might be. And I mean, this is not the first time that Alyssa and Henry have been teammates either. So, maybe that's a factor for them. I don't know, but maybe for a team that starts out as a group of 3, that might be a little bit more normal. Not sure. In any case, next up in the third slot, we've got the Matt Alcinas with a record of 6 wins, 3 losses, and a +1 differential. Ben and Vichy have they've been a little bit all over the place this season. They ended up taking a loss to LA New Wave pretty early on. They had kind of a crazy draft. They had that Inteleon Polytoad mode. They drafted I think 4 A tiers, and so their draft was really top heavy, and they ended up making some pretty crazy trades, like especially toward the end when they ended up dropping Polytoad and Magnezone, and they got the Tyranitar and Grookey, and they had that. They were the first team to beat the Patrats. They had that what was probably kind of an upset win against the Patrats. They've been kind of all over the place, but not to the point where most of that's been positive for them, I think. But they've been. I mean, they're obviously great players. They've had a great team, even though it's been kind of shifting a little bit here and there, especially now at the with this last transaction cycle. We'll talk about that a little bit. But they've been a really strong powerhouse, if a little bit of a strange powerhouse, but they've been very impressive. They also made finals last season, so I don't think it's surprising to anybody that they made it here in the playoffs. They've been they're actually on our power rankings anyway. They're actually above the Patrats, even though the Patrats are a little bit above them in differential on the rankings here. But I think they're clearly one of the best teams in the league, and I would not be surprised to see them go far in playoffs again. Next up, we have the New England Patrats. They are these guys started off really, really strong. I think they were 5-0 or 4-0, 5-0 at the same time we were. The Mats, I believe, were or maybe was it us or the Mats that were the first team to take a win off of them?
No. It was going to be a battle of the undefeateds until the Mats beat them.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So
they played them the week before.
So these guys had a really strong start. I think maybe this isn't a parallel I've drawn before, but I think maybe a little bit like the Russians, people kind of figured out what they were trying to do after we got a little bit deep into the season. With the Russians, it was more like, these are the standard modes they're going with. Make sure you prepare for that. With the Patriots, it was a little bit more like they're going to try to get an early lead, most likely with an early Dynamax, and then they're going to use their bulk and synergy to just maintain that lead and usually win off of time. Mm-hmm. And I think their first 2 losses came against us and against the Mats. And I remember the common theme with those 2 games is that both us and the Mats were able to stall out their Dynamax without it doing a whole lot of damage. Mm-hmm. With the Mats, it was a lot of really good defensive switching in front of the Dynamax and Teleon. With us, we just charmed and burned the Dynamax Caparajah like crazy, so it could barely do anything. And then they just didn't really have a whole lot of offense after that in both cases.
And then we held the lead and kept it to time.
Right.
And that's what the Mats did too.
Yeah, exactly. So so their team is obviously very, very solid. They were obviously doing a lot of what they wanted to do, especially early on in the season. It was just a very, very hard team to break through. They also had that same mode that Cleffy was running the season beforehand with the Runerigas Caparajah. Once or twice they were able to get that off again, and it's proven to be a really powerful combination, especially with that weakness policy set. They've been a really, really solid team. Feels a little bit like they've fallen off toward the end, considering they went from 5-0 to 6-3, I believe. But they're clearly one of the better teams in the league, and I'm interested to see how they do once again against the Mats here.
Well, it's the 4th time that they've gone up against each other in 2 years.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, they went up against each other in the first round of playoffs last season as well, and the Mats pulled it out. So we'll see if they can do it again. Who knows?
Something to note too about the New England Patriots: they stayed at that not 5 particularly, but hovering around like the 5 to 7 range for their differential the whole year. They never climbed, they never dropped. So it's kind of indicative a little bit of like how they didn't win by a lot, but they didn't lose by a lot either. They were able to consistently maintain like that +5, +7 differential, because we talked about that with going into our weeks, which is one of the reasons why we were clear ahead of them when we were undefeated. Is like their differential was so much higher than theirs, and I think they had played one more game than us at the time.
Yeah, they were, because we had already had our bye, I think, so we were both undefeated, but they had played one additional game. But we still had a significantly higher differential. So, but yeah, I mean that's what happens when you're winning off of time, and losing off of time too. Mm-hmm. Even their losses a lot of the time.
They're only -1, -2, and then they win by 3 or win by 2, win by 3. The next week, so you kind of hover around there.
So yeah, that kind of proved to be maybe a less consistent way of winning, and then of course they weren't really able to get their differential up by doing that. I think I maybe would have liked to see. I didn't really expect this to happen because I think they were happy with their team, but in an ideal world, I would have liked to see some transactions, at least from like 1 or 2 of those higher tier mons to try to build something a little bit more offensive, so that they weren't kind of forced into playing that way every time. So anyway, moving on to number 1, the number 1 ranked team in the league, of course, us, your Amoonguss Burnouts, with a record of 8 wins, 1 loss, and a +22 differential. I don't really want to hover on us too much. I'm proud of our season. I don't really want to, sit here and talk up our own team very much, but
this is step 1.
What do you mean?
Step 1, dude. Our step 1 in our master plan. Step 1 is get in the playoffs with the highest seed that we possibly can get. That's what we did.
We did secure that with our Week 9
Yeah.
win as well.
That's what we wanted. Step 2 is go into playoffs and make it into finals. Step 3 is to win the finals. It's master plan.
I mean, our first season, we made top 8, and we lost.
Mm-hmm.
Our second season, we made top 4, and then we lost.
Mm-hmm.
Our third season,
make it to finals,
and then we lose.
We'll take it.
Well, that just means that we win our fourth season, right?
We'll take the guaranteed victory next
If that's
year.
how it goes, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. If that happens, we don't even need a draft. It's so locked in.
Yeah. We'll just draft a bunch of E tiers.
Yeah.
It's fine. But yeah, I think just to sum it up, we had a very, very solid season. I think we had an even more solid draft, which I don't think we would have had if it weren't for Alan and Hector, since they took Mew from us. So thank you to them, I guess, for forcing us to do something a little bit different. I think we also, I don't think it's a coincidence that we're the top team and we're also the only team that didn't pick an S tier.
Yeah, I wonder if that's gonna have teams rethinking their draft. I mean, maybe if we lose in the first round, then people aren't gonna care. But
yeah, yeah.
But if we end up winning, it might be something that other teams kind of take a look at.
Yeah,
because the amount of versatility that our 4 A tiers have been able to provide us has really put us into a great spot, and hopefully can continue forward with that. But I think that was a big factor.
It has a lot to do with the combination of them, not just that. Oh, we picked more. We have a larger amount of solid Pokemon rather than having and so we're more balanced.
We also have
having
a large
top-heavy
amount of Bs.
Exactly, yeah, which is what those only picking A tiers allowed us to do. So, but yeah, it's not just the balance. It's that we picked stuff that synergizes well with each other, especially that combination of four A tiers. So, I think that really took us far. It allowed us to I think we had an easier time than a lot of other teams when it came to tailoring our draft to particular matchups. I think we had a lot more things we can do. We had we probably have out of all the teams here, we're probably close to the top of the list when it comes to the number of things our opponents have to consider against us. And I think that's that it played out almost every time. So I think a combination of great drafting, great prep, and great play brought us to the top here. And we'll see how far it can bring us in playoffs.
Yep.
Anything to add about our team?
I think the only thing that I would add is that, like you kind of alluded to, we do have a lot of like different things that we can bring. And I think one thing that, if you're watching this video, we have a lot of our pre-recorded matches up. If you're playing us, don't do this. But if you're out of the playoffs and you're not going to play us ever again, then do this. Go back and watch our videos. We hardly do the same thing twice.
Yeah.
There's a couple of patterns that we do follow, which we're not going to reveal, obviously. But, we hardly ever bring the same thing twice. It's almost always different sets, different items, different everything. And when you're going against a team that's doing that, it's going to make it very difficult, because we have a lot of obvious modes that teams are immediately going to look and go, oh, Grimmsnarl Duraludon, like, we know what that does. Like,
did we ever do that?
Yes.
We did?
No. We never, not with Grimmsnarl Duraludon.
Okay.
But that's an obvious mode that people look at and go, oh, they have that, like they can bring that. And yeah, we did the same thing last year with Mew, but it was a lot different.
Yeah,
it was a lot different. We brought a lot of different things, but it just the approach was a lot different. So it made building this year a lot more fun, and a lot easier. I think was what you hit on before.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
In a way, yeah.
in a way, yeah. Like not. It seemed like whenever we needed something, we could go to the Cerebi page and we'd be like, dude, we didn't know that this got this. And that totally
Or
just
we
fixes the
forgot,
problem. Or we
and, you know.
forgot, So stuff like that, know.
Dude, when I realized that we could do trick or treat stuff next to Grimmsnarl against New Wave,
Yeah.
oh man.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't get to pull off too much of that stuff, but, we had a lot of weird things that we could do that was fun. I think one of the best games that we prepped for it. I love these guys to death, but the Matt Alcinas, our game against them, where it was just like we almost nailed every single bit of prep because we had so much versatility and everything. So I think stuff like that, the team really did carry us a little bit on that. But hey, let's see if we can do anything with it.
That's what comes with an excellent draft, I guess.
All right, so wrapping up those, we have our 8 playoff teams, and we are going to take a look real quick at the playoff bracket. It's a little small, so sorry, but it's all right. We can, read it out here.
So for Shield Division, we have the 1 seed Mungus Burnouts, that's us, versus the 4 seed, the Potatoes. And we have the 2 seed, the New England Patriots, versus the 3 seed, Matt Alcinas, in another top 8 rematch. Mm-hmm. I believe the Patriots defeated the Mats last season in the regular season, and then the Mats beat them in playoffs, and then the Mats beat them again in the regular season this season. So we'll see if the Patriots can even up the score.
Flip it back on them, yeah.
Full disclosure, we are recording this a little bit late, so there are a couple of playoff games that have already been played. We're not going to talk about the results or anything.
Pretend like nothing happened.
Yeah.
So, in Sword Division, we have the number 1 seed, the Sky Pillars, going against the Sadistic Seniors, who were able to claw their way in that bloodbath of a division. And we have Doesn't Click, the number 2 seed, going against the number 3 seed, the Talon Flames. So both of these very, very interesting matchups, particularly the 1 and 4. The banter in their regular season game was very interesting because we felt that they didn't have, or that the Sky Pillars had a clear advantage on them. And the Sky Pillars, yes, and the Sky Pillars were insistent that if the seniors were to do something weird, that they would just win, and that this was one of their toughest matchups. And they were really, it was one of their biggest, I don't want to say breakdown, that's not the proper word to say it, but their scrambles, I guess you could say, to trying to find proper sets for this team was their team building against the seniors. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. They did end up beating them in the regular season. The Sky Pillars beat the seniors, I should say. So, but the seniors definitely not to be messed with. And Doesn't Click, I believe they handily beat the Talon Flames in the regular season, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, yeah.
So
I don't remember exactly how that went, but
that's also going to be a very, very interesting game as well. Shield Division in general, or Sword Division in general, is going to be incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
Did we just want to hit the picks? Who do you think?
Sure, yeah. I think all of our picks here, I believe, are the same teams that won these matchups in the regular season. So we're sticking with us over the Potatoes. Yeah. We're going with the Matt Alcinas over the Patriots, the Sky Pillars over the Seniors, and Doesn't Click over the Talon Flames. So provided that all of those picks are correct, that would mean that top 4 is us against the Matt Alcinas, and also, yes, well, all of these
from last year.
Oh, that's true. Yes, because we also they knocked us out of top 4 last season. So, and then over provided that we're correct, it would be Doesn't Click versus the Sky Pillars over in Sword Division.
Battle of the Heavies.
Yeah.
So that's definitely going to be something to watch out for. So wrap that up just real quick, an overview of the playoff bracket, and we're going to now kind of individually go through the teams, starting with number 8, the Potatoes. So I'll go ahead and break this one down real quick. The Potatoes, we have Alyssa and Henry. They have the Urchifu Surging Strikes, the Excadrill, the Gigalith, the Togetic, the Galarian Slowbro, the what is that? Unovan Darmanitan, right? The Kangaskhan, the Drapion, the Alolan Executor, and the Wooloo. I always forget the name of that. I always want to call it Mareep, but obviously it's not Mareep.
You could call it Mareep, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Mareep. White Mareep. I think Alyssa's going to kill us for saying that. But they came in at the 8th slot with a 3-6 record. We expected them to make playoffs. We didn't expect them to make playoffs like this.
Yeah.
You know. So they're obviously, they didn't make any transactions this week. We were supposed to put transactions on here. We didn't have a chance to. But, you know, they obviously a good team. We think their roster is one of the best. We still think that.
Yeah.
And
it's actually a little bit better than it was when we started the season because they had that type null instead of the Kangaskhan. And
yeah.
I was at one point or another I was
trashy.
I was really trashing that thing because it was we saw it come out once and it did exactly as well as I expected it to. It was just terrible, and I think they promptly dropped it soon after that for Kangaskhan, which is clearly an upgrade.
Drapion too is also an upgrade too. I forgot what they had before in that slot, but I know that they did add Drapion.
I think they had Drapion from the beginning.
Did they?
I think so.
Well, either way, great team. They've been doing fantastic as far as making it into the playoffs. But you know, we have to really look at Alyssa and Henry. If they can pull this together, they have the ability to. They have the team, so we have to watch out for them. Period. You know, so not much else to say on them. They were able to barely squeak in, but the caliber players, the caliber roster, if they can start clicking right now, we're going to be in for it. So I think they're definitely a team that needs to be watched. Anything else that you want to say on the Potatoes?
Not really. I think we're gonna do some speculating on the matchups here, but I think we're probably gonna stay a little bit quiet on that front when it comes to
them particularly.
To us. Yeah, us and the Potatoes. Just because that's obviously the match we're playing. So, yeah, we'll do a little bit more speculation on the others. So
yeah. Go ahead.
All right, the Sadistic Seniors, one of the teams that's had a little bit of a weirder season, especially toward the end. One of 3 teams that was fighting for this very spot. They're coming in at number 7 out of the 8.
This is the transaction order, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. So this is reverse transaction order since we're going 8-1. This is set up by record and differential. So they are 7th in terms of record and differential, with a record of 5-4, just squeaking into that last playoff slot in Sword Division. The only transaction here that they made, I believe, was the Poliwrath for the G-Max Kingler. Is that correct? Or is that... Wait a minute. Hold on, something's weird here. Scroll down.
Maybe they didn't make any trades. Yeah, they didn't.
Yeah, they didn't make any trades. That's still supposed to be Poliwrath. I don't know why G-Max Kingler is on there.
Probably from back in the day. I don't...
Is that Ryan's fault? I think that's Ryan's fault.
Possibly.
We're going to have a stern conversation with that guy. Anyway, let's pretend that's a Poliwrath instead of G-Max Kingler. Yeah, I think, let's see, they are playing the Sky Pillars. Yes. Yeah, I think I'd give the Sky Pillars the advantage here. I think maybe we want to get into that a little bit more once we hit the Sky Pillars so that we can kind of point out what what on their team makes us think that. But I think, I mean, in their first match, I think the downfall seemed to be that the seniors played incorrectly against the Rillaboom Riolu lead because they got the Riolu's item wrong. So they tried to go for a max Hailstorm to knock it out in the first turn, but it ended up being Eviolite, so it wasn't going down there anyway. But the max bug from the Rillaboom, from the Skypillar's Rillaboom was max bug is just so good against their team, especially against what they led. It's extremely good against Indeedee next to either of their big special attackers. It's super effective against Indeedee. You get a special attack drop on either the Porygon or the Raichu. Granted, either one of those is going to be able to attack first since they're faster than Rillaboom, but I think that pretty handily takes care of that matchup, and we can get to a little bit more about what we think about the matchup once we get to the Skypillars. But yeah, they've had these guys have kind of a wacky draft. We were a little bit skeptical of it in the beginning because of how top heavy it seemed, but we did like a lot of the threats. We thought they had some pretty serious win conditions, and they proved to be even wackier than we thought because they didn't even go for a lot of their obvious stuff, especially in the beginning. They didn't even. It took them a while to max Porygon even once.
Yeah.
So, it's always interesting to see what they're gonna end up pulling out. So, that's the seniors for you.
Coming in at number 6, we have the Matt Alcinas. Ben and Vichy went ahead. They went with the Wicked Blow Urshifu. They went ahead and swapped out the Thwackey for the Ninetales and the Tyranitar for the G-Max Venusaur, which is what we're seeing. So the G-Max Venusaur, the G-Max Inteleon, the Incineroar, the Ninetales, the Gengar, the Foongus. We have Vespiquen, Scorbunny, and Pupitar. Honestly, I like their moves a lot. It kind of rounds their roster out a little bit more. I kind of don't like that they dropped Tyranitar, but I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense with the direction they took it. I think overall, this makes their team scarier. Yeah, frankly.
Definitely. So, I mean, they definitely we feel that they're probably going to end up being the Patrats again. But one of the ways that we feel that you have to do that is by putting out more offense than them while simultaneously shutting them down. So it's going to be interesting to see how Venusaur and Ninetales are able to do that. Fast sleep powders can obviously be one way, but when you play against a team like the Patrats, they're not going to be afraid to throw safety goggles on a random Pokemon that they don't want put to sleep.
Yeah, I think with a draft as offensive as this seems, I don't think they're going to really have much trouble doing that. I think the Vine Lash is gonna take down the Patrats HP a lot more than they want it to. I think they're trying to bulk stuff. They're trying to bulk their opponents out a lot of the time, and losing that much HP is
it's a lot.
Yeah. The G-Max Inteleon is obviously a really big offensive threat. We know the Patrats like to play a little defensively sometimes and protect a lot. Can't do that in front of Urshifu. I think they've definitely got the tools to pull out the win again. So,
yeah, Benevici, great players. They're going to do well with this roster. So no matter what, it's going to be interesting to see how their run ends up playing out. They're used to playing in high stakes Pokemon games, so it's going to be their playoff run is definitely one that you should keep an eye on. Coming in at number 5, go ahead.
Number 5, we've got the Toronto Talonflames with a record of 6-3. They've got the Dragapult, Alolan Marowak, Gyarados, Liepard, Escavalier, Musharna, Dragalge, G-Max Toxtricity, which has not maxed once, I'm pretty sure, and the Tangela, of course, perhaps our favorite Pokemon on the draft, and the all-powerful Rufflet to round things out. So their transactions here were they were dropping Braviary, which Braviary I'm pretty sure never even hit the field. They had Sylveon for a majority of the season, dropped it for Braviary, and then I don't think they brought Braviary out at all. I think they only had it for week 10, and they ended up not playing that match anyway. Yeah. So I guess that's why. So that makes sense. But they ended up not wanting to stick with the Braviary, instead going for a different flying type, which kind of fills the same role, but is also gives them a much better water type than they had before. They had Starmie before, which was the other mon that they dropped in favor of Dragalge. I think. So I think we can kind of treat this as if they're trading the Sylveon for Gyarados.
Yeah.
It's I think overall this is a really powerful trade. Both of these together are a powerful transaction. I think it makes their Trick Room mode even better. They can they could even they could actually Sludge Wave next to the Escavalier, which would be cool. I've seen weakness policy stuff on Dragalge before. Maybe they could do that. Run some kind of weak psychic move on Musharna and self-activate weakness policy, something like that. The good old Marowak and Gyarados combination from 2017 is back. Although I guess it's not just from 2017. That's just where that's just what comes to mind most.
Use it in Series 5.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it was there too. So, I think these once again, the Talonflames they've had the best transactions of pretty much everybody this season, especially with the Tangela, but also definitely with these two trades here.
Yeah.
The Dragalge allows them a much more versatile Trick Room mode. It's not just like they're setting up Trick Room for the Escavalier every time. They have two really powerful Trick Room threats. I think I know that I've underestimated Dragalge quite a few times in VGC matches, and it's been rough, man. It's very, very strong with that adaptability, and I think with Gyarados, they have a lot more sweeping potential. Certainly more than Sylveon offered. They did lose their Fairy type, so they no longer have that Dragon Fairy Steel core. They don't have a. Am I blind, or do they not have a Fairy type? Okay. Type. Overall, yeah, I think their team is a lot more well-rounded, and I think it's. I still think that Doesn't Click has the better draft, but I think this gives them a better shot.
Yeah.
In this last week. So, anything to say about the Talonflames?
Nothing. I think you kind of hit it right on the head. I think their transactions once again show that they're one of the better teams, the best team in making transactions this year. I think they've only gotten better. We've seen what two good Trick Room sweepers can help you with. It opens up a huge door and far.
Oh, and Marowak too. Marowak is a big part of the Trick Room.
That's true.
Now that I'm looking at it, since they have three Trick Room setters or three Trick Room sweepers, I maybe would have liked to see another Trick Room setter.
You can go fast with Marowak though.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can. Yeah, well, with Dragalge too. Dragalge is only 1 point slower. So if you wanna do something weird like that, you can totally do that.
But yeah, overall, I think their team has pretty much only gotten better. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they fare going into playoffs.
Just don't Thunderwave with Liepard next to Marowak, please. Please don't do that.
All right, so coming in at number 4, we have the New England Patriots with a 6-3 record. They had the second overall seed in Shield Division. They have the Rillaboom, the Clefable, the Arcanine, the Inteleon, Runerigus, Copperajah, Manectric, Beware, Sneasel, and the Drifloon. Honestly, not a lot to say about this team. I mean, we like it a lot. Clefable next to three incredibly powerful Pokemon with the Inteleon, the Arcanine, and the Rillaboom. You have the Runerigus, the Caparajah mode that we've already seen last year and this year how dangerous it can be. The Beware has yet to well, actually, it did okay damage. It picked up a couple KOs, but the Manectric, the Sneasel, and all these other ones, they really have hardly hit the field at all. Their main core is those first five, I would say, or those but six of the Caparajah, the Runerigus, Inteleon, Arcanine, Clefable, Rillaboom. Like it's such a solid team that you can't help but bring it every single time, and it's got so much different versatility. Not a surprise that they went 6-3 at all. Where we were obviously a little bit worried about how much offensive pressure they could put out, which is obviously something that manifested itself during the regular season. Considering how their differential was pretty much around zero, but overall they have a solid team. They're great players. They know how to prep, so it's going to be very interesting to see how their match ends up going against the Mats, who already beat them this year. But these are two heavyweights that are going to be going at it. I say it a lot, but when it comes to the Mats and the Patrats, they've played each other a bunch of times. They know how each other plays. So it's not going to be surprising to see, who comes out on this one. I could honestly see either one, coming out with a huge victory one way or the other, or barely eking out a victory. I could see a 5-0 from either one of these teams, and I could see, a close game.
I don't see the Patrats 5-0ing the Mats. If there's a 5-0, I think the Mats win.
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment too. Although I will say that the Mats have shown that if you are able to stop their offense and kind of really counterpunching them, that they really don't have answers back. But I don't know if the Patrats have the counterpunches in them, so I think you're right on that. But overall, I think this team is a really good, solid playoff team. If you want a textbook on how to make a team that's going to make the playoffs, I mean, you pretty much look at something like this. This is a textbook awesome team. So kudos to them to making it, into the playoffs with this solid record. And it's going to be fantastic to watch them try and finish their run.
Question now is, does it have the strength to push through the playoffs?
Yep.
It got here just fine.
Yeah, but now you're playing against good teams, so it's only good competition from here on out.
Yeah. All right, and number 3 is none other than Doesn't Click, the 2-time champions themselves, coming in with a record of 7-2. They've got the G-Max Cinderace, the Primarina, Kanto Raichu, Mamoswine, that's a new member to the team, Obstagoon, Sarina, G-Max Orbeetle, Galarian Corsola, Stonejourner, and Litten. I feel like we've said all we're gonna say for about these guys. Their team is just their team is probably the best one in the league. It's the most solid. Like before in our week 0 power rankings, we had these two at the top for very good reason. They only made they made 2 transactions, but really they only made 1. It was they traded away that regular Cinderace for the G-Max Cinderace that the Russian assets had previously. Just a minor upgrade. Obviously, you want that 160 base power G-Max Fireball, and then they also traded their Silvally for the Mamoswine, which I think overall I like. Silvally to me has always seemed like bit of a lackluster kind of Pokemon. I think ground and ice really helps to round out their offensive capabilities. And when we asked them about the Silvally, I think one of the things that they said they really wanted to do was or at least they wanted to have the option of running a ghost memory on it so that they could switch Obstagoon out and protect that slot from from fighting moves without having to put Galarian Corsola in that slot every time, and which seemed like a good idea, but I don't think it ever. I'm not sure it ever really came up. So, the Silvally for them did some good stuff, but I think overall the Mamoswine is a more powerful Pokemon. I think it's. I think it works better for their team. Weirdly enough, even though Silvally can be any type, and they have used ground before. But having an actual ground type that can be ground type and run an item at the same time, I think is going to be beneficial to them. So
does it get Inner Focus?
Oblivious.
Oblivious.
So it's still immune to Intimidate, but you can still flinch it. So unless they max it. But yeah, I think Doesn't Click has had one of the more impressive runs this season. Obviously, they're fantastic players. They've won this league twice before. They're one of the top contenders for the best team in the league overall. They had a couple of unfortunate losses that came down to a little bit of luck. I think they are. I would probably say that they were maybe. Do you think you'd agree that they were the most dominant team in Sword Division?
Yeah, I think obviously it's close because the Sky Pillars did very well. But Fiona and Ryan, when you start at the top and stay at the top and all eyes are on you every single week, I think it's something that you have to take into consideration. Teams are throwing their all at you because they know you're not going to be a tough out. And when you're still coming in and just demolishing them, I think that speaks a lot. I'm not saying that the Sky Pillars didn't end up doing that, but we saw them become a formidable force. It kind of happened before our eyes, so in the beginning we were like, okay, cool, this team's kind of rattling off wins. That's cool, but they're not really that good, right? And, by the time week 7, week 8 comes around, it's like, okay, yeah, they are really that good, so they didn't have their target on the back as long as Doesn't Click. The target has been on their back since week 1, and they have taken it in stride and still rammed it down people's throats. So it's honestly, I think it's a fair assessment to say that in Sword Division they were probably the more dominant team of the two.
Yeah, it is very close though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's I'll go with that.
All right. So number 2 is the aforementioned Sky Pillars, a team that while they did take us by surprise, they are proving that none of this was a fluke. We kind of saw that from the get-go. Very solid play combined with solid prep. It's going to be hard to beat that no matter what. I think we saw something special. Honestly, I can only speak for myself, but when they didn't bring competitive and they brought Marvel Scale instead over Team Pussy, and you saw this Milotic take these huge attacks, and was ultimately the MVP, essentially just from good prep. You really I kind of felt like we had something special here. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, okay, these guys are not only winning with some of their lower tier Pokemon, because I think the week before they completely swept the Lava Ridge Raiders with Chandelure, right? Was that
something like that? Yeah,
I think it was because they got the sun up, and they started launching. They got Flash Fire activated, and they started launching Heat Waves, and then I think after that they ended up playing Team Pussy. I forget how it goes. It's been a little bit.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing that and going, okay, this is a team that is able to fully utilize their lower tier Pokemon to the maximum amount and keep their high tier Pokemon as reserves. When they come out, then we could just clean up with them in the end, But these lower tier Pokemons are going to be the ones that are going to be the backbone of our strategy, and it's worked out very, very, very well. And now, it's hilarious because everybody knows that Golurk is a threat, but it's still been very hard to stop it.
Yeah.
So that just goes even more shout out to them for being able to prep that well, because when you're able to still get something off when other people are ready for it, that just shows that you are coming in completely prepped and ready. So kudos to them. They have an amazing, amazing draft. Just to go over it, because I don't think I did. The Togekiss, the Rillaboom G-Max, the Milotic, the Chandelure, the Riolu, the Golurk, the what is that? Jesus,
Luxray.
Luxray. I was gonna say Shinx, but that's not what it is. The Nickit. I knew Nickit before I knew Luxray. The Milcery and the Rhyhorn.
This is why we need Gen 4 remakes.
No. Never gonna happen.
Okay. We'll discuss that later.
No, yeah. But yeah, honestly, I really, really, really like their draft. It's gonna be a fantastic time to watch them in the playoffs. Hopefully they can make a deep run because honestly, all their matches are fantastic to watch. They prep so well. They constantly know the right buttons to push and the right moves to make to put themselves into a winning position. So Shannon and Frat proving that they're going to be a force, not just this season, but hopefully for many more seasons to come. So
more than anything, I've been impressed with their prep.
Yeah, honestly, it's been fantastic.
Like they've been great the whole way through. You don't get a 7-2 record without also having a good draft and good play. But even more than that, their prep's been on point.
Yeah, and they're going against the seniors, which you kind of wanted to hit on a couple of things that they have over the seniors, right?
Yeah, I think as I'm looking at it, it's a lot of it comes down to leading Rillaboom just really prevents the seniors from wanting to go for their really big offensive special attacking modes, mainly the Indeedee next to either Raichu or the Porygon. And I think even if they want to try to go for if they want to try to do some stuff with the Poliwrath, again, a Rillaboom lead is going to make that really, really difficult. And even if they want to try their other alternative, at least the other obvious alternative is to try some Trick Room stuff. But the Sky Pillars have shown that they're not afraid to run Iron Ball on Golurk. Maybe they go for a room service this time, since that's all. I'm pretty sure that's all you would need to underspeed the Marowak and Trick Room. They could also go for an Imprison Trick Room set on the Chandelure. They can go for the Marvel Scale and start coiling up with the Milotic again. There's or if you want to go competitive on Milotic, that's going to be really good against the Porygon stuff. Mm-hmm. So they've got a lot of options. They have I think they have ways of beating pretty much most anything the seniors want to do. I do think they have the upper hand here.
Anything else you want to say on them?
No, I think we covered everything.
All right. So, wrap it up with us.
And last up, number 1 slot is us, the Amoonguss Burnouts, with a record of 8-1. We've got the Duraludon, G-Max, Grimmsnarl, Volcarona, and Blastoise as our core 4 A tiers. After that, we've got the Gourgeist, Comfey, Pincurchin, Slowking, Kanto Slowking, Johto Slowking, and the Hitmonlee and Munchlax. So the 2 new additions here being the Comfey over the Cottony and the Hitmonlee over the Noivern. So I don't know how much I want to give away about that, but I think, we were kind of looking for a fighting type during the initial draft anyway. I don't know that it's something we really needed, but it might come in handy in 1 or 2 matchups. So, and the Comfey, I think, in a lot of ways is
Comfey's amazing support. I mean, what else can you say about it?
Yeah, I think it's just a strict upgrade from the Cottony. Obviously, there's they each have stuff that the other one can't do, but I think given what else we have, that Cottony role is it's filled well enough by what we've got. So that one I count as a straight upgrade. The other one is more
coverage that we would like.
Yeah.
But not much else to say about us. We've kind of talked about ourselves enough.
Yeah.
So it's the main thing that we're kind of focusing on right now is just now that we made it into the playoffs, to continue to win week by week, starting with the very, very tough Potatoes. We did beat them, but we had a little bit of luck going. It was going both ways, so they did end up critting the last ways. But
I think, I mean, even without the luck, we had we had what we needed.
We had
in the back to finish it off. So
it's going to be an interesting match, definitely. But yeah, not much else to say about us. That rounds out the 8 playoff teams that we're going to be looking into these next upcoming week. One of these 8 will be a champion in these next couple of weeks. And just looking back at the playoff bracket here, we're going to wrap it up. I guess just kind of saying to all the teams that, played throughout this regular season, if you're still watching, this is fantastic. We hope that you guys can come back next year or next season. Next year, too, I guess. It's going to be probably next year when we do this.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, thank you for coming out, essentially, and being part of this league. It's a lot of fun playing against you guys. Only a few teams can make it. These are going to be the teams that are going to be trying for the MBC championship this year. I think we have a lot of good storylines, honestly. You have us, a team that, has not won a championship yet, but has constantly been in the playoffs and at least been in the hunt, throughout these last few years. You have the Potatoes, 2 Worlds caliber player, and Alyssa and Henry, where, they have a great squad. They were able to squeak in the playoffs. It would be a great story for them to come in and win a championship. Having a negative differential, an abysmal record, but showing that, hey, we pulled it together when we needed to, when it mattered most. It could be real big for them. The Patriots, they're kind of in the same boat we are. Dominant during the regular season. They've yet to come out of the first round. We've at least been able to come out of the first round. So, going to be interesting to see if they can take their revenge on the Mats, who, another team, they were so close to a championship last year, and you could tell they want it again. They have the team definitely to do it. The Sky Pillars, it'd be a fantastic Cinderella story for this team that was just going to come in here and play for fun, to dominate the league and come in and win in their first year ever. That'd be a fantastic story. The Seniors, a team that they feel they've been slept on, and honestly, I feel that they've been slept on too. Granted, their record hasn't really shown what we wanted and expected from them, but, if they can come in and prove themselves here, I think, I believe it's not Marcus is coming back, but his partner, I believe, is going to be leaving next season. Bless you.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, I believe they're going to be one of them is leaving. But to have this one final ride, they've been 2 great players. They've been a blast to play with and have them in this league. So be a great story for them to kind of ride off in the sunset those 2 players, championship under their belt, and taking off. Doesn't click. Dynasty. They want that next championship under their belt. They want to prove that they're the best team in this league year in, year out. If you could put 3 championships under your belt in the short time that this league's been formed, you show that you're a dynasty, period. And the Talon Flames, a team that I believe the 2 original ones they separated. They played last year. I believe they now are, one of them is a upcoming player, and they didn't do hot last year, and now they are. So it'd be great to see this redemption story of a team that really didn't do well the previous season. They got their stuff together, came in with a new teammate, came in with a new attitude, and now they're in the thick of it and looking to make a championship run. So I think all these teams really have good storylines to them, and they all want to prove themselves. So gonna be great.
Absolutely, yeah. Good luck to everybody playing.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we are going to be back actually for the top 4. We're going to break down these top 8 games. Hopefully, we'll have some video. I think most everyone is going to be recording them, I believe, correct?
I think we'll have a recording for all of them.
Yeah, so that's going to be fantastic. Hopefully, we have a recording for all of them. I really do hope that. Maybe try and get an interview in, because it's probably going to be a shorter one since we're only going to be. So we'll see. If you're one of the playoff teams, if you're watching this, and you won your match, or if you're going to win, we're probably going to want to talk to one of you guys. Excuse me. And just break down and see exactly what happened. So, Yeah. So we'll see you guys next week or whenever we decide to come back and all the games are played because I believe we're having some scheduling issues at the moment.
It's going to be a little while, yeah.
Once the last game is played for top 8, we will make a video and we'll get that taken care of. So we'll see you guys. I'm Anthony. That's Matt. We're the Mungus Burnouts. And yeah, we'll see you later.